we're in England, and this is that's a reminiscent story. I do a few of these videos with stories about the past, and this one's really a very strange story. And in the mid to late 1980s, I would help my father in the shop when he was away. And if I wasn't at school, or it was a weekend, or it was a school holiday, I would help in the shop. And I wanted to help in the shop. I loved doing it. And it wasn't a matter of him making me do it or press ganging me into doing it. And one day I was in the shop, and a dealer came who we knew. He was a Dutch dealer, and he used to buy the carved Flemish style oak, which was large pieces of oak, often carved with the lion mask handles, which were called pussy oak or green man oak, or we would call them Flemish ebonized oak. And it was the sort of stuff that didn't sell very well in England to local people, though in the Victorian era, England was full of it. So there was all this stuff in England that no one wanted, which we would buy and put in the warehouse. And we'd sell to the continental buyers because they wanted the Dutch carved oak, and would take it back to the Netherlands and sell it again. Some was black, still ebonized, and some had been stripped back to a blonde oak. So there was a variety, and there were bookcases, there were desks, and it all was modular. So if it was a partner's desk, it would come into three pieces, it would lift off top. If it was a bookcase, the top would lift off. So this buyer would hoover up all this furniture from the locality. And in Warwick in 1987, there were 54 dealers, and there were many traders selling it. But my father had the biggest shop in Warwick. It was 7,000 square foot, full of pictures and brass and stuffed figures and all-case clocks and barometers and rugs and chandeliers and furniture. And this day he managed to park outside the shop. And because he was outside our shop, we knew we wanted a winner, because he was relaxed and took his time and wasn't always worrying about getting a ticket. And it was also literally easy for him to load from our shop into his van. He had a huge van, 60, 70 foot long, like the Dutch flower importers use nowadays. If he didn't get a parking space outside my father's shop, he would have gone to the next dealer and would have bought most of the stuff there. It's just the way it used to work. So we were selling to the Japanese, Americans, the Italians, the Sicilians, the Australians, the French, the Dutch, and the local people, and the London trade as well. And he would come into the shop 3 times a year and fill up his van. So he came in the day I was there, and he was quite happy to deal with me. Some of the dealers didn't want to deal with me, they wanted to deal with my father, but he was quite happy to deal with me. We had a system in the shop where each item had a cost code, selling price, and I was given instructions by my father of how low to go, and I knew sort of how to do it. So he made a list of 20 items, and I gave him prices as we went. And he said, okay. And we got to the end, and I might have rounded it down for him, or possibly gone back and found some of the things he was not sure about, and really knocked the hell out of the price to make him feel he had a good deal. And he did have a good deal, because he kept coming back. But the day he came when I was on my own in the shop, I was on my own in terms of selling, but there were other people on the premises because of the security. 7,000 square foot, it's a big shop. And we finished, he'd done the loop, and he picked the items he wanted, and he paid for them, and we gave him an invoice, and we loaded the van. Because he was outside, it was quite simple. We just chucked the stuff on the van. He chucked rugs over it and tied it to the sides of the van and stacked it all up. So it was just went like clockwork. And then he came into the shop, and he when he'd arrived at the shop in the morning, because he'd parked easily and had plenty of time, he was very happy. But he was more happy than you'd expect in the morning. And when you hear the end of the video, you'll understand why. So after we'd finished with the money, he paid in cash, I think, in sterling, and he took away the paperwork to get the customs to sign, because we needed an export certificate. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to have the exempt VAT that we'd given him. He said to me, right, I've finished now, but I want you to do something for me. And I looked at him and thought, this is a bit strange. What does he want? He said, I want you to get me a woman. I said, what do you mean? He said, I want you to get me a woman. I said, what do you mean? He said, I want you to get me tonight a woman. I said, what do you mean? He said, I want you to get a prostitute for me tonight. And I thought, oh my God. So I was 16 or 17, stood at school, and this bloke, he was big bloke, he was starting to sweat and going bright red, and he was obviously frustrated and thinking about the evening. I thought, what do I do? So I said, I don't know any prostitutes in Warwick. It's not that sort of town, and it wasn't that sort of town in those days, certainly. And I said, I don't know any prostitutes. So he said, you've got to get me a prostitute. I've just spent £6,000, lots of money in 1987. And I said, well, wait a minute. So I went to the other people who were in the shop working for my father, and I said, do you know a prostitute? And they said, what do you mean? Do you know a prostitute? I said, of course, none of them knew a prostitute. I went back to him and said, no one here knows a prostitute, I'm sorry. And he said, well, where do I go in Warwick to get one? And I said, well, there isn't anyone in Warwick who's a prostitute, as far as I know. And being Dutch, you would assume there would be mountains of them hanging around hotels and bars, but there weren't any in Warwick. And I said, there's no hotels you can go to in Warwick to get a prostitute. It's not that sort of place. I said, maybe in Birmingham, maybe in London, maybe in Leamington Spa, I don't know. So he's getting quite agitated and confused, and wanted to get on with his day. And he said, well, can you give me some phone numbers so I can ring one? I said, no, I can't go out onto the street and just ask a total stranger, do you know any phone numbers for a prostitute, because we have a Dutchman who wants one tonight. You know, it was stupid. And that's the story, really. It was just a crazy day. The customer, it was a perfectly nice bloke who we knew, did the business, and then at the end of the day had this one request, which to me, a schoolboy in England in 1987, was quite a strange thing to ask for. But of course, being Dutch, it is a fairly routine thing to ask for. So it was just a clash of cultures. So that's the funny story. Thank you.